Back at our table this morning, the president of the Family Research Council, Tony Perkins, here to talk about social conservatives and the president. We heard from the president this week that he will announce his pick for the Supreme Court on Thursday next. What are you hoping, what are you hearing about who this pick will be?
Well, first we know that the president is going to pick off the list that he presented during the campaign, the two lists that have a total of 21 names. That they have assured us and the public that that's going to take place. But also the president has been very clear on the type of justices that he would appoint. Those that are strict constructionists, they're constitutionalists, they're going to not find things in the shadows of the Constitution, but interpret the words as they were intended. And he added, for the first time ever, a Republican nominee saying that he would appoint pro-life justices. That was very, very significant. In fact, I think in the third debate in Las Vegas, when he drove that point home, I think that was really where he closed the deal with social conservatives across the country in his bid to become president.
We've heard that this list has been shortened to 3 names, and let me just read them. Judge Neil Gorsuch, who's the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals judge, Judge William Pryor, who sits on the 11th Circuit Court, and Judge Thomas Hardiman on the 3rd Circuit Court. Tell us about these gentlemen. Would you be happy with any of these 3?
I mean, all 3 have some very positive aspects. We've looked through their cases, and of course, being on the appellate court, they all have extensive records, and I think that's important. I think it's important that we have a Supreme Court justice that we know where they stand on these issues in terms of their judicial philosophy, because that's the other aspect that the president has made very clear. He wants someone in the mold of Justice Scalia, who, interpreted the Constitution. Their judicial temperament is very important. All 3 have positive aspects. I think Pryor has a couple of decisions that some have raised issues about. Gorsuch has a good, extensive record on religious liberty issues, on the life issue, as well as both having very good records on those issues. Again, when we say good record, interpreting the Constitution as, as an originalist. Those are the qualities, the judicial philosophy that the president stated he was going to pursue. And to his credit, that is exactly what he's done every step of the way in this first week, is that he has, starting with his inaugural speech that many criticized, it was a continuation of his campaign. And I guess that takes people by surprise, because normally politicians change a little bit once they win election. Well, we're going to dial that back a little bit. He's continued saying and doing the things that he said he was going to do.
What about when he actually makes the announcement? Of course, there is, he has to be confirmed by the Senate, and there is remarks made by the Democratic leadership in the Senate, Chuck Schumer of New York, that this candidate needs to be mainstream. It doesn't sound like these 3 judges are, in the mainstream of what Democrats would like. So if there is a battle to get him confirmed by the Senate, what is the role of your group, and will you step into that and put money behind it?
Well, first off, we have to work with definitions. Who's defining mainstream? I'm not sure that Chuck Schumer and I have the same definition of mainstream, nor does Chuck Schumer and the president and Mitch McConnell, who is the leader in the Senate, who has been very clear that the president's nominee will be confirmed. Now, Mitch McConnell is one who is very precise in his words. He doesn't just go off and say things. When he says something, he is going to follow it through. And so it's going to be a battle. There's going to be a battle royale, but it will be I think the president will get his nominee confirmed. And groups like ours, as we did with Justice Alito, when Bush made that nomination, we worked with Senator Frist, who was the majority leader in the Senate, and we helped to get him confirmed. So yes, we, along with other organizations, if it is one of the justices that we are completely committed to, will help move the grassroots to help the president and the Senate, the Republicans in the Senate, gain the confirmation of that Supreme Court justice.
I want to invite our viewers to be calling in as well with your questions and comments here from Mr. Perkins. Democrats 202-748-8000, Republicans 202-748-8001, and Independents 202-748-8002. Let me also get your reaction to action that took place in the House, passage of an abortion bill.
Right.
I want to get your reaction to what Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, Democrat of California, had to say about this bill.
I'm a Catholic. I have 5 children in 6 years. Anybody have standing on the issue? And I think that there has not been taxpayer dollars spent on abortions. You know that. So this is fraudulent. It's fraudulent, and what they're doing is making it more dangerous so that people can't spend their own dollars in the exchanges to have access to reproductive rights. So we will fight that.
Mr. Perkins?
Well, I have 5 children, and my wife had them. I helped, though. And I think I can speak to this issue. I mean, the life issue is a very important issue. Again, it's an issue that Donald Trump had campaigned on as a pro-life candidate. What this bill did was simply take the Hyde Amendment, which was passed back in 1976, to separate taxpayers from being forced to fund abortions. Now, we know that in the Obama exchanges, while they used an accounting gimmick, there was taxpayer money going to subsidize abortion in these health care plans. What we're doing, and the vast majority of Americans are supportive of that. I mean, this is where you're at 70% of Americans. While some may support abortion, we're divided. You know, it goes back and forth every other year. But on the issue of forcing taxpayers to fund something they're morally opposed to, the taking of an innocent human life, that's beyond question. And so simply what this bill did by Chris Smith, HB 7, House Bill 7, was that it said taxpayer money will not go to fund abortion. It makes the Hyde Amendment, which has been an annual rider since 1976, a permanent statute. That's all it does.
The CNN has a story that says the legislation also includes a provision that would ban anyone who obtains insurance through health care exchanges created by Obamacare and uses government subsidies from using those funds for plans that cover abortion services.
Correct. That's what it does. Because it's a subsidy, what the accounting gimmick that Obamacare used was that it provides a refundable tax credit, which is a government subsidy that goes to pay for these health care plans. So it is not someone keeping their own money and having their own money to decide what they do with. It is government money going to them to provide that health care coverage.
All right, let's get to calls. Gracie's up first. Smithfield, Virginia, Democrat.
Yes.
Gracie, you got to turn that television down so that you can...
Okay, Lord, I'm so sorry, ma'am. Yes, my comment, I see. Now, here is all the president before Trump, and here he is, the 45th president, and ain't nobody addressing Congress or nobody that he is that and said he ain't going to turn his tax paper over. Now, if he affect for the American people to do right, and he ain't doing right, they see he ain't doing right, how can he control and tell the American people anything? The father, he commanding in.
Well, Tony Perkins, do you have any thoughts on him not disclosing his tax records?
Well, I think they were disclosed during the course of the campaign as they were released. Look, it's not about his tax records, it's about his policies. In this election, it was very interesting what happened in this election. Started out as a personality driven. I mean, he's a unique individual. But you had Hillary Clinton on one side, you had Donald Trump, and there was very little discussion about policy. But at the end of the day, this turned into a policy election. And it really was reflected in the party platforms. In fact, a post-election poll showed that 59% of Trump-Pence voters voted primarily for him based upon the Republican Party's platform on issues like life and religious liberty. So his following through on those issues is basically keeping the commitment of the Republican Party to the voters who put them into power.
The president of March for Life, Jeannie Mancini, is that correct? Mm-hmm. Are you attending the March for Life tomorrow here in Washington? This is from the Washington Post. It says that Mancini brightly rattled off her 4 demands for Trump and the new Republican Congress: appoint an anti-abortion justice to the Supreme Court, make the Hyde Amendment, which bans federal funding for many abortions in the United States, into a permanent law rather than the one-year provision that has been extended each year, pass a law banning abortion nationwide after 20 weeks of pregnancy, and stop all federal funding for Planned Parenthood unless the organization were to somehow stop performing abortions. And Mancini wants to see it all accomplished immediately.
Well, we're on our way. I mean, you said House Bill 7, taxpayer funding of abortion, making that permanent. The president has committed to a pro-life justice. We're going to see that next Thursday. The reconciliation bill will defund Planned Parenthood. The 20-week, basically a 5-month after 5 months, you can't have an abortion. Feels pain. That is making its way through Congress. The House is going to have a vote on that. So, yeah, I think people are shocked at the speed by which this president is moving forward, not just on the social issues. I mean, that's just a couple of the issues. National security issues. Where his passion is the most is on the economic issues. Canceling the trade agreement, going to negotiate new trade agreements, the pipeline. I mean, he's creating jobs. But he's also, he's going, again, you want to know what this president's going to do? Look at what he campaigned on, and that's exactly what he's doing.
We'll go to Severna Park, Maryland. Damien, Independent.
Hey, how you doing this morning?
Morning.
Good morning, C-SPAN. Mr. Perkins, how are you this morning?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I'm doing well. I hate to go back to the character issues concerning President Trump. Were you a supporter of his once he became the nominee?
Once he became the nominee in the primary, when there were other candidates that were more closely aligned with the values that we advocate for, I was with supporting another candidate. But in the primary, when it came down, again, as I talked about earlier, really two ideologies and platforms, and since he embraced the Republican Party platform, which I had a part of writing, then yes, I was supportive of him in the general election. Okay.
Did you find it hard, character-wise? I understand policy, but the character-wise, we have heard the things that he said, talking about the disabled reporter and the comment about women's genitalia and things of that nature. I know, as far as I know you believe to be a professing Christian. Did you find it challenging to kind of overlook that and say, listen, I heard the things he said, I've heard his comments, his rude and crude comments. Did you find it yet still challenging to support someone that had those type of character issues to kind of...
Yeah, it's a great question, because I'm not alone in that, and I'm sure you're not alone in that. There were a lot of social conservatives, evangelicals in particular, that struggled with that issue, and it was a matter of a lot of prayer for me. But again, it comes back to the ideologies and the party platforms and the issues that he said that he would promote and push. And that's why I think it's so important for him to continue doing exactly what he said he was going to do and adhering to what the party platform. Never in recent history has a party platform played such a key role, because that's where evangelicals in particular, social conservatives more broadly, when they had trouble with the issues that the caller just brought up, they looked to the party platform. And that is what put Donald Trump over the top. And to his credit, again, we're just first week in, but he's doing exactly what the party platform called for and what he campaigned on.
And Republicans acting, as we talked about on H.R. 7, the minority leader in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, tweeting this out: one thing is clear, House Bill H.R. 7 restricting women's health access doesn't stand a chance in the Senate.
We'll see. Look, we've never had a president like this who is determined to get things done. He does it. It's kind of like, when you don't know that you can't do something, you get it done. And he's not a part of this political establishment. He's not been here for years and has these political barriers that stand in his way. He said, we're going to get it done. So we'll see. I have more confidence in Donald Trump than I do Chuck Schumer in determining what's going to happen here in the city.
Let's go to Bill, Little Rock, Arkansas, Republican.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Perkins.
Good morning.
The headline there is on the television says social conservatives and President Trump. For years, the huge majority of people in this country who believe in the Judeo-Christian God have had so many setbacks. Here in Little Rock, one of our legislators passed a bill to set up a Ten Commandments monument on the Capitol grounds. And here in our newspaper, there is a group that wants to set up a statue of Satan right next to it. And now we're having hearings and debates, and this is what I'd like to do. How about us trying to fight back and establish once again what the Constitution really meant in separation of church and state, and that is that the Congress can't establish a religion, but that we can have a Ten Commandments monument on the Capitol grounds, which corresponds to the 80 and 90 some odd % of people who believe in the Ten Commandments. Now they're this group wants to get a statue of Satan. And my God, we've got to fight this at some point. How about we try to take it up to this maybe new Supreme Court that we're going to get?
All right, Bill. Tony Perkins.
It's going to be interesting to see who they get as a model for that Satan statue. But the issue here is not lost on this election cycle. I think this issue of how social conservatives, Christians in particular, have been suppressed in terms of their religious freedom. And religious freedom is not the ability just to choose what church you want to go to on any particular day. It is the ability to live your life according to your faith. And this past administration was constantly trying to suppress and quarantine faith. That's why Donald Trump received the highest percentage of evangelical votes in recorded history since we've been tracking it. 81% of evangelicals who voted, which was about 26% of the voting population, voted for Donald Trump. And he made central, again, along with the life issue, he made religious liberty. He was talking about repealing the Johnson Amendment, which reporters were asking, what is the Johnson Amendment? They had no idea what it was. It's simply a provision of the tax code that limited the speech of churches and religious organizations. That's going to go away this year. He's going to get rid of that. And I do think that, as Bill was talking about, I think Christians and others around this country are going to be emboldened. They have been emboldened by Donald Trump, who refuses to be choked down by political correctness, that they're going to speak out. And I do think we're going to see a revival of sorts of religious freedom in this country, and I think it's long overdue. Do
you have some people in mind who could serve as a model of Satan?
No, I'm interested to see who they might choose. But it'll be, look, that's where we've gone to where, you know, a nation that had a shared ethic. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody was a Bible-believing Christian, but there was an ethic that came from that emanated from Christianity that united us, you know, basic broad principles. And as those are torn down, and as those have been marginalized, from beginning at our schools and even now in our military, that actually undermines the authority of government and those that are trying to lead this country, and it further divides us. I mean, we're a very divided nation. You can see that. You saw that this weekend here in Washington, D.C., this past weekend. So I don't think Donald Trump can fix that. I think we're a very divided nation, but I do think that religious freedom, not forcing anybody to participate in, but allowing people the free expression of religion, which the Constitution guarantees, I think, if anything, that can help bring us back together as a nation.
Let's hear from Chris, Arlington Heights, Illinois, Democrat.
How you doing, Greta? How you doing, Tony?
Good morning.
So, Tony, talking about the division, me and you could not be further from the side of the spectrum that we're both on. For starters, you got to see any 1040s, which the president has presented, which you just claimed that have been released during the campaign. So that definitely never happened. Secondly, you keep talking
I'm
about
sorry, I missed what you said.
She said he has not released his taxes yet.
Okay. Yeah, we have yet to look at the president's taxable income and examine that and check for any conflicts of interest, which also is under the umbrella of ethics. Secondly, you keep talking about religious freedom. You keep talking about originality when it comes to the Constitution. And I understand those things. But how does banning Muslims from coming into this country play into that? It just doesn't seem sensible. When you're looking at the Constitution itself, specifically the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. So I would like to hear your response to that. And as well,
sure.
The Senate's going to kill any bill that's going to try to stop abortions within this country. If you don't believe Chuck Schumer, I would take a second, step back and think about it, because the Senate is where this country is going to be controlled for the next 4 years, and that's where the buck stops.
Okay, Chris.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't agree with that last statement. I think you're going to see, as things have already changed, there are going to be further changes. But to his point about the Muslims, in a proposed ban, It's a good question. I think people say, well, if there's religious freedom, why can't you have, Muslims coming into this country? This is not about banning a religion. It's about banning those that are putting it's not an overall ban. It's just letting us vet those, extreme vetting, those that want to come into this country that have a propensity to undermine, destroy, and attack America.
All Muslims do?
No, but how many Baptists have committed terrorist attacks in this country? We haven't. It's not all Muslims are terrorists, but all the terrorists we've seen so far have been from the Muslim faith. And we're talking about regions of the world that are producing these. Look, religious freedom stops when you start to undermine the country and the Constitution itself. It's ordered liberty that we have. And so religious freedom is not the ability to do anything you want when it comes to threatening the lives of other people. And so the president is simply saying, look, we need to vet those coming from these countries that are producing terrorists that threaten our national security. I think it's the wise thing to do. I think it's the prudent thing to do. And I think it's, as he stated, a pro-American. And I think it is time that we put America first again.
Columbus, Georgia. Mike, a Republican.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment on, as far as getting things done. A lot of people don't realize when President Obama was elected, they didn't like what was going on and they wanted change. And obviously, that didn't happen. And, there's a lot of people, that's why, President Trump was elected, was because people wanted things done. And now they're actually getting done. The way I look at it, more has been done actually before he was even president than in the past 4 years as far as bringing jobs to America and getting things done. And, as far as all the social, I could care less about tax returns. I could care less about what President Clinton did in the Oval Office. But he was a good president, and he got things done.
All right, let's get Tony Perkins' view.
Well, I would take a little different view. I actually think that Barack Obama did get a lot of stuff done. It just wasn't good stuff. I mean, he, especially in his first 4 years, he drove a lot through. As he polarized the country more politically, he didn't get as much done, although he used, as he said, the pen and the phone to do quite a bit. And that's actually what Donald Trump has been cleaning up in these first few days, is undoing a lot of those executive orders because the president did not go through Congress. Now, having said that, I believe there were times when Barack Obama exceeded the true limits of what he could do by executive order, and because he couldn't work with Congress like he did on some of the immigration issues. I want to see this president, by the force of his personality and his persuasion, to move Congress with him and work with them. I do not, and I don't think any conservatives want to see this president cross the line of the constitutional authorities of the White House to accomplish conservative things. We believe he has the type of personality, the stick-to-itiveness that will drive these things forward, and we want to see him do it within the boundaries of the way things are supposed to work.
James in Evans, Georgia, Democrat.
Good morning, Greta.
Morning, James.
Tony.
Good morning.
I'm a Democrat. I didn't vote for President Trump, but he's our president now, and I'm going to give him an opportunity to see what he can do. But I just got a few questions for you, Tony. Mm-hmm. First of all, you talked about the Hyde Amendment earlier, and in that it is to prevent funding going to those individuals or organizations, and sometimes states, that sponsor abortion, that pays for abortion. My question to you, will that include Israel, Canada, Japan, and states as well? That's the first question, and I think the American public is sort of confused when it comes to misguided. Their focus is on the president being able to solve all their problems, and that's not the way our system was set up. We have 3 branches of government, and what I see as that has been the preliminary problem is Congress inaction. They have yet to pass a comprehensive immigration reform. And in their consideration, why are we focusing on people of color? You spoke earlier about social conservatism. To me, that reeks of, and I'm a religious man myself, I'm a Baptist, but to me that reeks of white people. And that is not what social conservatism is about.
Okay,
and
James, I'm going to have Mr. Perkins respond.
Well, first, I would take issue with that last statement because I know a lot of social conservatives that are people of color, Hispanic, African American. So it is not a white club, believe me. To his point about where the problem lies at the president, we shouldn't be looking to the Oval Office to solve all our problems. I could not agree more. Actually, I would say I don't think we should be looking to Washington, D.C. to solve all of our problems. I think really where most of America's issues can be solved is really in our own homes. I think we have to take personal responsibility to be working to raise our children, educate our children, working in our communities. And I think Washington, I mean, obviously has a role to play. But I do think we disproportionately look to Washington, D.C. to solve all of America's problems. And I think that's why we have the debt that we have as a nation. I think that's why we have, in part, the polarization. When I served in office at the state level, you know, Democrats, Republicans, we worked, I mean, being a Republican, yes, it meant something. Being a Democrat meant something, but not a whole lot. It was more based on let's come to an understanding and on common ground to help advance our state, the families of our state. And so we worked together. I came to Washington 14 years ago, and I found that partisanship is much different here. It's stronger, and it's become even more polarized in the 14 years that I've been here. I don't think that's a good thing. But it is what we're dealing with. I think the only way to solve a lot of these problems is to look back at the state, the local, and all the way back to the home.
Well, a tradition that has been happening over the years is the March for Life rally. Yes. That's occurring tomorrow here in Washington.
And the weather's going to be nice. It's not going to be, minus 5 degrees or so, or snowing. It was, we had the blizzard last year.
Right. So that is happening tomorrow, and I just want to let our viewers, let them know when our coverage begins, noon tomorrow on C-SPAN, cspan.org, or you can listen on that C-SPAN radio app, and you can see who is featured there of attending the rally. Kellyanne Conway, the President's senior White House counselor, Senator Joni Ernst, Republican of Iowa, Representative Mia Love of Utah, and Representative Chris Smith, Republican in New Jersey, Mia Love, Republican of Utah. And then there's reports of a surprise VIP guest. So, Mr. Perkins, what do you know? Please share with us.
I can't comment on it, but there will be, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a nice guest.
The President?
Can't say, but it is someone who has a track record on this issue.
Okay, so the Vice President?
I'm not going to say, but it's someone that all of the marchers will be pleased to hear from.
Okay, and how many are you expecting this year?
You know what, I don't do counting. I can tell you this, as I have heard from across the country, people are energized, they are encouraged, they're grateful, they're thankful. I think you're going to have a massive crowd tomorrow.
All right, well, as we said, our coverage beginning at noon on C-SPAN. Robert, Greenville in North Carolina, independent. Couple more calls here for Tony Perkins. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Mr. Perkins. As a conservative, the whole group of conservative Christians that backed a morally bankrupt president, I find conservative Christian doesn't go with Donald Trump. And for a model for Satan, you elected him for president. He's the devil in street clothes.
Well, why do you say that, Robert? Why do you say that?
And I'm saying this for the Democrats too. We're in the sewer now. This man should have never been allowed to get as far as. He shouldn't have been there in the first place.
But Robert, why do you say that about the president? Why?
Why? Because everybody that's close to him knows it, and the people, even if the Republicans know, we know what he is, And the people closer to him, they should be more ashamed of themselves because they're allowing him to ruin our country.
Well, let me just ask you a question, though, about that, Robert.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We lost him. Yep. Okay. I mean, look, we have a choice. The choice in the general election was between Hillary Clinton, whose party platform actually, for the first time, called for taxpayer funding of abortion. It specifically named Planned Parenthood and expanding its support of Planned Parenthood. And then you had the opposite in the Republican Party platform, both candidates wrapping themselves in the party platform. So, you know, I've heard that many times. How can you support? So was I supposed to vote for Hillary Clinton? I mean, or was I supposed to stay home and not vote? As a Christian, I believe I have well, first as an American, a veteran in the Marine Corps who understands the price that has to be paid for us to have the freedoms that we have, that as American citizen we have a right to vote, and I believe as a Christian I have an obligation to vote. And sometimes that comes down to voting for the candidate who you think will do the least amount of damage to our country. But in this case, when we looked at the platforms, we look at the ideologies, yes, there were concerns about the personal aspects of both candidates, but it came down to looking at the ideologies and the platforms. And so it wasn't a choice. It was very clear that Donald Trump was the candidate. And I make no apologies for supporting him in the general election. Glad to do so, and glad to be a part of helping mobilize Christians across the country to support him and put him into the White House.
If you want to learn more about the Family Research Council, you can go to their website, frc.org. Tony Perkins is the president. Thanks, as always, for having a conversation with our viewers. Appreciate it.
Great to be with you this morning. Have a great day.